Warner Brothers Discovery, they were essentially in a position where they didn't have access to any footage of World Cup downhill because for the last decade or so,
Wow.
it had been owned and run and managed, etc., by Red Bull.
Did you just come back from doing something for the UCI recently? Like you saw something for Sam?
Oh, yeah, okay. So that's
Is that under wraps or?
Yeah, that's out in the open. So how do I start with that story? This one's off the cuff. Well, I haven't even prepared a response for this one. So
sorry. That it's just
no, it's all good, man. Just give me a moment to think.
Yeah.
So as I said, I'm from here in Wollongong, and probably the most prominent mountain biker we have here in the area is Josh Carlson. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Josh Carlson, but for anybody who isn't, he is essentially a TV host for the UCI and Warner Brothers Discovery now.
I know who he is.
He travels the world racing mountain bikes and conducting interviews and whatnot. So this was part of a pre-season marketing effort for Warner Brothers Discovery at the Cannonball Festival. Josh Carlson kind of connected the dots there. So shout outs to Josh. What an absolute legend. Such a good bloke. And it's not like I've never filmed a mountain bike race. It's not like I've never had an opportunity to conduct interviews with Sam Hill either. But there was definitely something about this project that put a lot of weight on my shoulders, because essentially for context, actually, this will be real interesting for people, because I don't know if this is something that's public knowledge or whatever, but I can discuss it now for sure. Warner Brothers Discovery, they were essentially in a position where they didn't have access to any footage of World Cup downhill because for the last decade or so, it had been owned and run and managed, etc., by Red Bull, and Red Bull didn't want to forfeit the rights to that footage. So Carlso was already in contact with Warner Brothers and was like,
so they
"Hey,
can
there's
start
going to be
scratch."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Other than maybe some photos or something like that, that's some photographers were able to license. They didn't have any footage from racing or anything from previous seasons that they were allowed to use. Maybe they did end up licensing some, but my understanding was that sending people like myself and people I can't even remember who was doing it in the UK. It's not Tommy C, somebody else. But basically, they needed to come together with a big
team
library
of
footage to start promoting the races leading into the season. And that was why they got me on board to go down to Cannonball, because they knew that there was going to be all these international mountain bikers that were going to be there, that were competing. And there was nothing else on the international race circuit at that time of year, because Europe is still under snow. So,
So they've got they can't shoot anything there.
Pretty much. There's no racing or anything really going on there. So it's you've got Greg Minnaar, who wasn't racing, unfortunately, but then you had Jackson Goldstone, Laurie Greenland, Sam Hill, Benoit Collange, who's from France, who's top 10 downhill racer.
He's always in the mix.
Camille Balanche, who's a top female racer as well. Exactly. So that was a prime opportunity for them. And that's why there was a lot of pressure on my shoulders in order to deliver for that event. They didn't necessarily have the budget to pay for a larger crew of operators, camera operators. They were sending me and just me down there to capture it all. And I'd like to think that the footage that I
down there, wasn't she? Didn't Cammy?
There was.
That's right.
Mate, there was a heap of professional racers. I'm just basically providing the context there and saying that that's how that shoot with Sam Hill was organised at Cannonball. Yeah.
Coming from I've worked in marketing department for the business I mentioned earlier, and considering what they go through to get out content, say if something trends like that and what they've got to do to turn it around, or just the backlogs of content. Like I've seen all the files. I know all the photographers and videographers that work for that business. Yep. That's why I was like jaw dropped, because that's Warner Brothers Discovery, like that's not a joke. The UCI, it's no joke. It's a main sanctioning body for cycling. So it's nuts to be like, oh, here's the reins, guys, but obviously they don't want to release that footage, so they're like, oh, twiddling fingers, like, what are we gonna do? That's so nuts that they've pretty much got zero. Like they had zero to begin with.
It blew my mind as well, really. Like when I found out about it, like blew my mind. But honestly, when you've got a company that scale, they're willing to pay decent money as well. So that's why you've not only got the pressure of having to deliver all of this footage, and there's only a finite amount of opportunity, one race run or whatever, but then there's a financial expectation that's attached to that contract that you're initiating with them. So, but when all was said and done, like I delivered what was necessary. Like one may even argue that based off the metrics and the performance of that footage globally, that I exceeded their expectations. So I'm pretty happy with that, mate. Like I can't complain. And I get to work with some of my idols as well, which just blows my mind. So if you told me when I was 15 years old that I was going to be paid thousands of dollars to go and film Sam Hill or Greg Minnaar,
what?
I didn't know how to respond, to be honest.